Welcome to stage 13 of the 2025 Tour de France. And mate, it's our favourite sort of racing today. It's a TT, and I feel like the French were just out to remind everyone that they are some of the worst people in the world by creating an uphill TT like this. It looked like absolute agony, especially that last, what was it, the last 300 meters or something, where it just ramped up and you saw these people that thought maybe they had a chance at actually beating the long-time leaders time Luke Plapp, and that hope just faded from their eyes as they went further and further into the red up that last ramp. So kicking things off real early on, Luke Plapp, who's just been sitting at the back every day, came out with an absolutely barnstorming TT, and from there, you could really just turn this off and wait until the last, I think it was really like the last 10 riders. Harry Sweeney had a good ride, but really the only thing that I noticed here was that disgusting reverse mullet that Ineos Grenadiers were running with the fat front wheel, like the deep front wheel and the skinny rear wheel. I never want to see that again. That was the Primoz Roglic's socks of today. And I'm sure you'll tell me that there's some sort of aerodynamic advantage, and I have heard on a competitor's podcast that there is actually an aerodynamic advantage to it, but it is disgusting. The person that got closest to Plappy was Matteo Jorgensen before people started knocking him off, and he was one of the last riders. I don't know exactly where. It was Adam Yates as well, who had a really good ride and got quite close. So they were the two that would have had Plappy sweating. And Plappy was in the SBS commentary box, and it essentially said he expected to come within the top 10. I don't think he was expecting to come fifth, which is what he does come on this stage. So some of the big hitters start coming down. Oscar Onley has a pretty good ride. Florian Lipovitz has a fantastic ride. But unexpectedly for me, the person that ends up knocking Plapp off is Primoz Roglic, who has an outstanding ride. We'll get on to the TT bikes versus the road bikes a little bit later. I was a little bit skeptical seeing the people on the TT bikes, but Roglic came out and demonstrated that that was the way to go before Remco rolled down the ramp after him and demonstrated that maybe it wasn't the way to go because Remco had a horrendous TT today. He ends up getting passed by his 2-minute man, Jonas Vingegaard, who ends up, I think, coming in 30 seconds ahead of Primoz Roglic. So a fantastic ride by Jonas Vingegaard. Unfortunately, again, Jonas is the second best cyclist in the world at the moment to the best cyclist in the world, Tadej Pogacar, who on a road bike comes through and beats all the guys on the TT bike by, I think it ended up, I've got here, Jonas Vingegaard by 36 seconds, Primoz Roglic by a minute 20 down, Florian Lipovitz fourth down on a minute 56, and Luke Plapp almost 2 minutes out, a minute 58 out of Tadej Pogacar's time. So just an out-of-this-world ride by Tadej Pogacar. Every time he starts a race, I think surely he's got to have a bad day eventually. But at the moment, he just hasn't. Hey.
Yeah,
So that's my
exactly. Yeah, I think you've covered basically everything there is to cover there, apart from a few little bits here and there. But yeah, again, we sort of predicted this yesterday that it was going to be really hard for anyone to beat him. He was, in a way, lucky that he started last because we had that suspense of will he go faster than these guys. And yeah, a few really the only things that made it exciting and didn't follow the script were probably the fact that one of the earlier starters was in the hot seat for so long. So I think Plappy has, been admitted to hospital now with third degree burns from sitting in the hot seat for so long. I think that's got to be a record there. but he would have known he was going to be toppled at the end there for sure. I did speak to him while he was in the hot seat, and I'm sure he was pretty busy answering a lot of messages from basically every podcast that he's ever been on, asking for some inside goss, which we've got for today. But yeah, him being in there for so long was maybe a bit of a surprise in that no one in that middle section challenged him. And then just really the big the big loss was Remco having an absolute shocker. Started quite well and then clearly just got to that first checkpoint and beyond and worked out he was not on a good day at all, and then just suffered like a dog. And we saw that, ended up getting passed by Jonas in the end, who he ended up being a perfect carrot for Jonas to chase on that last steep ramp. But that one was hard to watch. Remco, who I tipped would not quite be with the top two guys, but pretty close to them, and someone that's able to pace that kind of effort really well. But yeah, he's just a long way off the mark. And to see that Roglic put more than a minute into Remco is not something I was expecting today. So yeah, he's going to have a lot of questions to ask of himself, and the team's going to have to sort of reassess how they play things from now on. His GC position hasn't changed too much in that he's still holding on to third by the skin of his teeth over Florian Lipovitz. But looking at the last 2 days, he's not going to have too much confidence going forward when he has 4 riders sitting just behind him within a minute and a half. And that is Lipovitz, Onley, Vakalan, and Roglic. And tomorrow is a bloody hard day as well. So he is, not going to sleep too well tonight, I think.
No, so at this point, and I didn't think we'd be here, Primoz Roglic is only, a minute 20 down on a potential podium at the Tour de France at this point. Dude's rolling around in anklets yesterday, and now he's a minute 20 down on a third place at the Tour. That's crazy.
Yeah, and like he's probably someone that we did say he looked like he was checked out of GC in the first week, but also he's someone that knows how much it can all change in these final 2 weeks. And he's been there before where he's been ticking every box early on and then fallen apart later in the Tour. So I think just that relaxed approach might save him from this point onwards. And he's like, for someone that is definitely past his best numbers and past his best potential results, he's still not far off. Like he's not a Chris Froome spec where he's completely out of the competition. He's pretty close to these guys still. And I can't see any situation where they give him too much rope because they know how good he is. But the fact that he's still hanging around there does at least add something to the race. And I really hope he can actually stay on his bike, because I think he'll surprise a lot of people in the third week if he can get through a Grand Tour without crashing and actually have some good legs then.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And the other thing that I'd like to point out is that third, fourth, fifth, and sixth are all within, 40, 50 seconds of each other. And they're all for the best young riders jersey. So again, as I was saying yesterday, that third spot looks like it's going to be locked up by someone who's under 24 years of age. And I think that's really exciting. We're looking at Tadej Pogacar here. Really dominant performance. We are 13 days into the Tour de France. He is 4 minutes and 7 seconds ahead of Jonas Vingegaard. But you're literally watching the future generation come up in this Tour de France, and I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, it's good to see that we've got some kind of competition. This is probably what we're going to have to talk about. And I think it's what we'll see more in the GC battles in the days to come, because from now, my prediction is that we get quite a few breakaway days, which is always good because we get to see the stage battled out by riders that aren't usually contesting the stage win when they're up against guys like Tadej Pogacar and Jonas Vingegaard. But we get two battles for the price of one. What I'm imagining will happen, and he's probably going to break the trend because he always does, but Tadej doesn't need to do anything from now on to Paris to win this tour other than basically follow Jonas, and maybe if any of the others in that third to sixth position start making a run, then he might have to follow some wheels. But even still, he can essentially ride his own pace and hope his teammates are around to keep the pace solid enough. So I think from that GC group, we'll see more of a battle in the end for people to take 20 or 30 seconds here and there from each other from that third to seventh position. So, yeah, that's going to be what's more exciting, I think, in that second race within a race. And yeah, we'll get some good breakaway days from now on, which is good because they're the stories that we like to see. And we're probably going to get some of those first time Tour de France winners where for those kind of breakaway riders, it is life changing. And yeah, it's going to change a lot more. It's going to be a lot nicer story, I guess, for someone to win their first stage of a Grand Tour, or we get those stages like the one that Campanarts won last year stands out, or the Mohoric interview from a few years back also. Like these ones where it means so much to someone as opposed to Pogacar picking up his 22nd or 23rd or 24th stage. We're probably more likely to see those new riders come in and take something special for their own career. So that's going to be good to look forward to as well.
Do you not think the Visma Lease bike, they've got to make down 4 minutes and 7 seconds somewhere? Do you not think that them pushing at the front might neutralize those breaks?
I think what they'll look to do is to use satellite riders most days, and depending on the race situation, and depending on how Jonas is feeling. So if Jonas gets through a stage, or halfway through a stage and goes, I'm on today, I can see that today might not be looking so good, then they might rip it, try and get across to those satellite riders, make it a GC day. If it's a day that Jonas isn't feeling particularly good, or they attempt it and Tadej just shows that he's clearly on a good one and not in any danger, then they might shut it down and let their satellite riders contest the stage win, like we saw with Simon Yates the other day. So I'd expect every day from now until Paris to look for Visma Lease to be putting riders in the break. And then, depending on the situation, they'll be looking for Tadej to have a bad day because he has before, but we haven't seen any signs of that yet. And I think just if he is, I think we might see him being more conservative to try and just avoid the chance of that bad day, because from now it's really quite a simple race. He has one opponent within 7 minutes of him on the GC. So it's just a matter of following that opponent and making sure that he doesn't have one of those days where he completely cracks.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to have a bad day eventually, right? But I
Yeah,
was
and
sitting
it's
there.
just whether they notice that he has a bad day. Because if he has a bad day on a sprint day, then no one knows. And if he has a bad day where they only race for the last 5K of the last climb, then he might lose 30 seconds. And yeah, people don't realize that he was actually feeling rubbish the whole day. So it's really a tricky one, because they can throw everything at it every single day and just destroy themselves, and he can cruise along, and then they don't actually have the energy to do it on a day where it could make a difference.
I was halfway through Tadej's ride, watching him go green at every single checkpoint. I had a moment of frustration where I thought, as a cycling fan, this is a bit annoying. And then that sort of faded, and I thought, you know what? It's pretty incredible. Like, the dude, just day after day, is just performing the peak of, like, this is the hardest race in the world, and every day he's just coming out and putting out incredible numbers, and it's just fantastic to watch as someone who just enjoys watching someone at the peak of their sport. I don't know. I've been frustrated at times, but I think I am very much coming around to the fact that we're watching someone that is just incredible.
Yeah, and for me today, it's taking nothing away from anything else, because it's quite literally a time trial. The job is to go out and ride as hard as you can from bottom to top. I think if we see him doing 80-kilometer solo attacks for the next 3 days in the Pyrenees, then there is a chance that it will become somewhat boring and take away from the race. But today is a time trial anyway. The fact that you get to watch someone giving their all against everyone else giving their all and showing that they're that much better, I think doesn't take anything away from the race and is pretty special to watch. And also, I'm happy for him to rack that up as another stage win to his tally, because then when we're old and people are asking us about the cyclists that we used to watch growing up, or I'm a grown up now, but we used to race
Andy
against
Schleck,
them.
that's
Yeah,
Andy Schleck.
used to race against from, at least from my perspective, I can say I raced against this bloke a few times, and when he looks like he's going to take the Tour de France stage win record and just be the greatest cyclist of all time, which is more well and truly on track to be, and is arguably already. Yeah, pretty cool to be able to watch that and see it, and just the way that he goes about it as well, and that yeah, he is ultimately a nice guy. He is friendly with everyone. He's not pissing everyone off like we have seen from others in similar positions before. So I think it is great for the sport that we are able to watch this. And I think, yeah, as I just said before, like the beauty of this race is that we will still get other stories throughout the race. And it is not a carbon copy each day of this guy is just going to ride away from everyone. And that's just all we're going to see for 3 weeks, because there will be some other stories out of the race. And the other thing is, like, yeah, he's very good at it, and he has been very good at it, but he's still got to stay on his bike. So, yeah, we don't want to put the muzzle on him at all, but that is part of the tour, and there will be points where it is still chaotic in the peloton, and there will be crazy descents, and at some point we will have a wet stage where it is not as relaxed and calm and in control as it was today. So, yeah, that there's still the challenges on the way to Paris to get there.
And we have, I think it's easy to get a bit distracted by Tadej Pogacar's dominance, but to be fair, there haven't been any of those big back breakaways. He's taken this time by chipping away on the last climb of stages, and every single one of those stages has had awesome narratives. And I think when we get to the end of this tour and we sort of look back on each stage, every single stage so far has had its own flavor. And, it's not like we're eating a meal that is only spiced by Tadej Pogacar here. Every single day we get something pretty special. So I think so far, for a Tour de France where we are seeing the leader 4 minutes ahead of second place, I certainly have not found this tour to be stale.
Yeah, and I think the way that, like the way that Visma Lease Bike will race it from now on, they're not the kind of team that's just going to give up now either. So they will be still looking for opportunities. Um, and yeah, the fact that we've still got that battle where you don't actually know which of that second tier of riders is going to be on a good day and which one of them is going to be on a terrible day, because they're all capable of having terrible days as well. So that's going to shift around quite a bit. We're still going to get those stories and still going to get that racing. Yeah, we're not going to see the same seesaw of GC battle that we have seen between the top two in the last few years. Yeah, it looks like at this point, but yeah, we can still see things shift around to get away from the top level GC guys and actually focus on this stage for a little bit more, which I struggle to do because we're both not huge fans of the TTs or the numbers, but have got some numbers from today from Luke Plapp, who's been kind enough to share his, well, I think unkind enough for me as someone that is still trying to compete at the top level of the sport. I see these numbers and it just makes me sad rather than inspired. The fact that this is still 2 minutes off the best. But for the climb, Puppy was pretty proud to send through his numbers, which are a PB for this kind of effort at this point in the race. But 21 and a half minutes for the final climb at 442 watts. So that watts per kilo wise is 6.54 watts per kilo. So fun little effort. And you can do this on the trainer tomorrow, Aiden, as you're watching. And for anyone at home, just go out and times your weight by 6.54 and just see how long you can ride at that power for. And then just work out how far of that climb you could have got up with the 5th place finisher. And then, maybe add a few little watts per kilo points onto that and see how far you could have done with Tadej.
So I've been ashamed to weigh myself after coming back from China because I enjoyed way too much food and far too little exercise. So I'm just going to estimate that my weight is about 85 kilos. So that would be 555.9 watts for 21 minutes, which is, to quote the castle, tell him he's dreaming. That's not happening. I don't think I could push 555 watts for 30 seconds.
Yeah, and I think that's what most people find. So it's just crazy. the level that these guys are at, and you don't really see it until if you were to go and ride that climb, it'd put it into perspective how steep it is and how hard it is. But yeah, you don't. It's really hard to pick up on TV how fast these guys are going and the level that these guys are at. So to see stuff like today, it is still pretty cool to watch. Did you have anything that you picked up on from today that people might not have at home?
No, not really. I think where I wanted to kind of take this, because I don't think we've got, like, there's no domestique of the day. There were some riders that, like, for example, Simon Yates, clearly he got lapped by, I think Sepp Kuss caught him, I think it was. So Simon Yates was clearly just not putting it out there, and that must have been tough when his brother had such a great time trial today. So, maybe Yates, he could get it. I don't think there was a dickhead of the day, aside from the fact that, again, we see a rope along the side of the course, and yet spectators are still on the time trial course. That's a bit frustrating.
I've got a dickhead of the day, which I'm not going to pin down any rider. I did see this very early on and throughout the bits I was looking. The dickhead of the day for me in these TTs is the rider that is clearly suffering, and then the camera comes on and they try to make it look like they're going super easy when they're hurting just to get through. I think no one's enjoying that climb, even if you're trying to ride it particularly easy. If you're having a rough one and just suffering up there, just own it. It's the Tour de France. Everyone's expecting you to suffer. It's a hard climb. So yeah, that's the one for me. Is when you see the rider that's clearly not having a good time, they work out the cameras on them, and then they put on this poker face and try to make it look like they're not trying at all. I think they're not trying to be cool is well and truly past it by the time you're at the Tour de France. Just be prepared to look rubbish on the bike even on a time trial, and that's completely okay at this point in the tour to look a bit rough as you get into the finish line on a stage like today.
Totally. Just at this point, I apologize if my audio is not as good as it normally is. I've realized that my computer's not recording through my normal microphone. So this at this point has just been an accessory. So I apologize. I hope it's sounding okay. So yeah, look, on there, what I'd like to talk about just quickly is some tech. I think I had this written down as something that I wanted to talk about yesterday, but it did sort of run a little bit over time. So the two things I wanted to sort of discuss are, number one, time trial bikes versus road bikes on this stage. We did see everyone that placed well this stage except for Plapp, who I believe was on a road bike with a disc wheel on the rear, and Tade, who just opted for his standard V4 RS or whatever that new Colnago is called. I can't remember the exact weird configuration of numbers and letters that they've given it. But yeah, everyone else seemed to be on time trial bikes with climbing rims. And then Pogacar's gone and stomped everyone on just his standard, not even the climbing bike, it was the aero bike. What do you think about what do you think about that?
Well, yeah, I was looking, and as I was watching everyone going on different bikes and still getting quite similar times, I was thinking, okay, this is fitting in quite well with the Disgraced Cyclist's book titled "It's Not About the Bike," but it is really just interesting that it was the perfect situation where you have a climb that's steep enough that a road bike is still okay and still fast enough that a TT bike provides some advantage, where it just evened out in the end, and it's going to come down to personal preference. Even within teams, we saw Matteo Jorgensen went with the road bike option. Jonas Vingegaard go with his full TT setup. The disc wheel was really uncommon apart from Plappy, who clearly did a good one, but I think for that one, it's because KDEX does a really light disc wheel compared to other disc wheels. So for others, it's going to be more about weight saving. We did see some full weight weenie kind of stuff with Pogacar not using bar tape, and then a lot
And
of
no paint on his bike.
yeah, no paint
Oh,
is next level.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of that kind of stuff going on. And then the helmet choice was mostly just for ventilation, and Vingegaard went with the full TT helmet, even though it's going to be a bit heavier and no ventilation. So that kind of stuff, it's really personal preference. I liked the fact that riders were happy to make their own call on it, even within a team, because sometimes in a team situation, you're almost bullied by the sports scientists for the cooling side, and then by the aero lords for the like aero spec and that kind of stuff, even if you're not as comfortable on it. So to see riders prepared to just take their own choice and just go with what they're most comfortable on was good.
Yeah, yeah. No, and it did provided some flavour to a time trial to see at the starting line what each rider was choosing as an option. I was on the turbo during this one. I think that's going to be a bit of a common thread to help me stay awake until the wee hours of the morning. So yeah, I was actually having quite a bit of fun just sort of seeing them roll down and see what different equipment they were choosing. Visma Lisa bikes seemed to be some people in the old TT helmet and then some people in the road helmet. Interestingly, from memory, Yates was in the old TT helmet though, and he was not going out. So I found that an interesting choice. Maybe he made the decision on the day that I'm just going to save my legs for later. But yeah, aside from that, the only other thing that I wanted to bring up, there was a bit of chatter yesterday about Vingegaard and his one by setup, and it seemed like he was running out of gears. Now, it's only topical today because there were quite a few of the riders running one by, and that's obviously for weight today, and because it's just a climb, you're not going to need a huge range of gears, I guess. But it did look like he did run out of gears yesterday. Are we seeing maybe the death of this conversation about one bys?
I think we're going to see more of it because it is more efficient to stay in the big ring.
Mm.
And with 13 speed coming in, you do have that, that big range of gears anyway. The derailleur tech has improved so much more that you're not worried when you are running a big ring on the front and a massive dinner plate on the back. I should say rear derailleur tech, because part of the reason is taking out the front derailleur so you don't have to worry about that. I think we will see, honestly, more of it just because it is more efficient and more aero as well. Not that it made much difference today, but it's something that we'll see more of, which is crazy because for me, just always think it's so nice having a front derailleur and being able to spin more when you want to, and then being able to be in a really big gear when you want to as well, especially if we see this UCI ruling with the gear restrictions take hold, which that's a whole nother podcast in itself. But if that ends up coming in, then I think we will see more than 50% of the peloton using one by.
Yeah, yeah, right. I think for the average punter, I think one by makes a lot of sense. I never go outside my big chainring, and that's not because I'm pushing out big watts or anything. It's just on the rides that I do. It's very rare that I need to drop into my smaller chainring. So
Yeah, and
yeah, I
if you
think
live in a flat area, like so, a lot of cyclists living in, we got a lot of listeners in Australia that I'm sure if you're just riding in a city most of the time, doing crits most of the time, you're just not going to need that big range of gears. Also, for anyone in Belgium and the Netherlands, again, not going to need it, which is a hell of a lot of cyclists there. The UK as well, like for sure, if you're living in Nice where I am, I would hate training on a one by, but at the pro level, they don't have to worry about the training side of things because they just have a separate bike altogether. But if you're living in a flat area, the front derailleur is pretty redundant, I think.
yeah, totally. So with that, let's jump on to the next stage. But before we do that, again, just a plug for our friends at Domestique. Just a reminder to jump over, follow all their social media channels. They have a Twitter and a Blue Sky that we've not mentioned. Apparently, the click-through rate on this podcast is quite good on Twitter and Blue Sky. So maybe we should give that some love. I don't have Twitter because we don't need to go into why I don't have Twitter, but I also don't have. Well, I've got Blue Sky, but I don't give it any love. But yeah, you should go and give them a follow. They're doing some really good work on the website. Cyrus, do you have anything to chuck in there?
No, I'm sure this is Domestique are the guys also to have a look at if you are into your TT tech and the pacing stuff and the watt crunching and that kind of stuff. So I mentioned him a few times, but Dieter Loos is doing a lot of good stuff on the Domestique platform with the just number crunching, and any nerds that get half an hour into a TT podcast are going to probably love their numbers. So jump onto that if you want to see the watts these guys are pushing on the climbs and get some insight as well into who's going better, who's going worse at this point in the tour, because you're getting a lot of that. And then also, as we touched on as well, just the stories behind the winners is what the Domestique platform has been great for, and what I've been using it for is to just look at what's not necessarily the person that's crossing the line first, but what's going on around that, and even off the bike throughout the circus that is the Tour de France. So get on to them and have a look at what they're doing as well.
Yeah, totally. And just in regards to that, it's just the roster that they've got on here. I mean, aside from the fact that, people like myself are on here, which I'm a very, very average cyclist, but they do have some outstanding cyclists. I am trying to get up the list, but it's not working for me at the moment. Here we go, creators. So in regards to the riders that have got Brody Chapman, Nicole Frayne, Lorenzo Germani, Sarah Gigante, Georgie Howe, Marcel Kittel, Francesca Koch. Just a huge, and Cyrus Monk, there he is. Emma Norsgaard, just a huge bunch of riders that are contributing to that page. So, just a wealth of knowledge there outside of what we're doing here in regards to the podcast. So, with that, do you want to run us through what tomorrow's stage looks like?
Yeah, so tomorrow is the textbook Pyrenean stage. So we've got 183K, which will be a pretty long time at the pace that they will be going. And we've got 4 dirty big climbs. We've got Col de Tourmalet first, Col d'Espagne second, Col de Peyrasourde, and then a finish on Le Champ Super Bannière, which is, they just love adding super because it always just goes a little bit further than the actual top of the climb, usually on either gravel or a tiny little path, which riders absolutely love, as you can imagine, at the end of a hard mountain day, just going up a tiny little extra bit. But 5,000 meters vertical gain tomorrow. So genuine mountain day, and it's going to be super hot. They're going to be pretty cooked at this point. We've seen a few riders cruise in today's TT, but now we're going to see, the real gaps in the GC, and more so the big fight for the breakaway. So for my guess for tomorrow, and it's a tough one because I do think the breakaway will be given a big chance tomorrow, and it's just a matter of, when you're trying to predict who will win from the breakaway, it's just trying to look at who's been looking okay, but not quite close enough on GC, who will be given enough of a leash. So for me, I haven't seen too much of him yet, which I'm hoping is a good sign for tomorrow for my prediction, but I'm going to go with Santiago Buitrago for tomorrow's stage. Someone who is South American, loves the high altitude, which we're spending a fair bit of time up around the 2,000 meter mark tomorrow, and just some really long climbs. So he is my pick from the breakaway tomorrow.
My pick for the breakaway tomorrow is Michael Woods. So he's looked pretty decent, but I think he's pretty down on GC. He's been in the breakaways. He's been having a crack. So I think he might have another go tomorrow. I was tempted to go Ben Healy, but I think he actually put in a pretty solid effort today, trying to get a decent time trial out. And I'm not convinced that Ben's got the legs, although I'd love to see it. But he might be my second one because I know he does train at altitude, and he might be a pretty good one. Not Ben Healy, sorry, Ben O'Connor. Ben O'Connor would be my other tip. So Michael Woods or Ben O'Connor for me. But
All right.
I think this will be won by Tadej Pogacar, if I'm honest. I think this Melissa bike will have a go at this, and I think it will be another one where they try and turn the screws on the last climb, and Tadej goes, I'm a bit sick of just sitting here, so I'm going to stretch my legs.
Yeah, well, it's definitely one that they would have looked at before the tour and thought, right, this is the one to have a go. They would have been hoping that Jonas would just put in a really good TT. This is a day that's just going to be a massive KJ's day, kilojoules and energy power output, which in historically has been one of Tadej's only weaknesses. And yeah, they would have thought, okay, this is going to be the one to do some damage. I'm sure they'll be looking for that opportunity, as I said. It's just going to be interesting how they feel because a lot of their riders are not looking particularly good. Jorgensen in particular has, been going nowhere near, I think, what he would have hoped for at this point in the tour, because he would have hoped to still be a chance for putting some pressure on. But yeah, I think they'll definitely look to do it. Whether they commit to drilling it up these first few climbs to keep the breakaway in check is another story. But yeah, I think the way it's looking, if it does come back, then Pogacar's going to notch up 3 stage wins in a row. But we will have to wait and see, I guess.
Cav must be sitting there sweating, just sweating. This guy's just coming for them real thick and fast, isn't he? He's just coming away with another hatful.
Yeah, Cavs needs to start paying the breakaway riders to have a dip and keep the breakaway away, I think, or it's going to end up, being handed over pretty quickly.
What's the longest gap between a comeback? I think we might see Cab in the 2026 Tour de France at this rate.
Yeah, Vino might give him a call, put the Astana kit back on.
But I think that might be the end of today's pod. So, yeah. Cheers, Cyrus.
Beautiful. Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it. And if you are watching this on YouTube, which not a lot of people are, they seem to be going to the other platforms, but if you can give it a like, and maybe a comment just to help it grow. And if you are interested in looking at share this stuff with friends. So yeah, if you think these guys aren't two Muppets, maybe give it to a mate. That'd be cool. Anyway, see you, mate. I'll see you tomorrow for what I think is going to be a really exciting stage.
Beautiful. I'll see you then. Cheers, guys.
All right.